Hey guys, welcome back to Talk Story with me, Gaven Sugai. I'm here with the former mayor of Honolulu, Mufi Hannemann. Mufi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you and your loyal listeners.
Thank you again for joining us, and thank you again for this opportunity that we can talk about your campaign and running for mayor again. So, my first question, and a lot of people are probably asking, is why are you running to become the mayor of Honolulu again?
Well, these are tough times. These are times of crisis. You see, every day there's a negative headline about our economy going south, people suffering, businesses not knowing whether they can reopen again. And certainly, if the tourism industry doesn't come back in a safe way, we are going to experience more problems for our local economy. So, recognizing all of this in my present position as the president of the Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association, I've decided to go back to my old job. Because if these were normal times, Gavin, I would not run. Let somebody who's a fresh face, let somebody who says they have new ideas come to the forefront. This is no time for on-the-job training. This person is going to have to walk right in and immediately take action right away. You don't hire someone, you don't vote for someone who's never been in an executive position before in government. You do the nice ideas, the fresh face when they're normal times. You give them time to learn the job. You give them time to surround themselves with advisors to advise them how to do the job. But you need someone right now that can act immediately. And when I was mayor for 2 terms, or elected twice, we came through some very difficult periods. Economic recession back in 2008, 2009, where we were in a tailspin then, was able to bring us back without raising property taxes. I presided over the major environmental sewage spill in Waikiki that had us pour raw sewage into the Alawai Canal. Not only did we resolve that, but I settled 2 major lawsuits or points of contention against the city with the Sierra Club and the Environmental Protection Agency. And then when the bell was summoned about the possibility of Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard coming to a close, went to Washington, D.C., and got that last critical vote to save Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, save some 4,000 jobs. And when Aloha Airlines went by the wayside, because they didn't get the kind of state assistance that they were looking for, put together a comprehensive job fair to replace, or I should say, find jobs for the Aloha Airline employees. Some of them came into the city. Most importantly, I went forward to try to help them. So that's in my DNA. I want to help people. If I were looking to leave Honolulu next year and go to the mainland, and Gail's mother is there where she's quarantining her, she's 91 years old, I wouldn't even think twice. I just say, bye, I'm going, I'm out of the way. But I want to stay here. This is my home. This is where I was born and raised. And I cannot sit idly by and see the city suffer. And I have leadership skills, I have managerial skills. Once again, the only person to have actually been a mayor who's ready to go back again.
And thank you again for being our mayor back in 2004, and then even your second term in 2008 when you got reelected. Um, so that kind of goes into my next question. So, what is different about this election versus when you first ran back in 2004, and even for your reelection back in 2008?
Well, we've never faced this kind of crisis before. This is unprecedented. This pandemic crisis that we're facing is something very different, obviously. And we've got to figure out a way how we can manage to coexist with this hovering around us. It's going to be a while before we find a vaccine. And so we're seeing places around the world that are coping with it. We've got to take some of those best practices and utilize it here at home. Economically, this is the worst it has ever been, and it will continue to get worse. It can continue to give us problems. And I can't imagine a scenario whereby we just saw Halekulani Hotel is going to now open next year, not this year. We see some of our favorite restaurants like Ikalike Drive-In no longer is going to operate, or some of the newer restaurants that have come up that are not going to be able to get back on their feet. And when we do, there's going to be a new normal, Gavin. Um, Seating capacity is going to be limited, and maybe even more expensive to be able to go to a restaurant or stay at a hotel or come in on an airplane to Hawaii. So it requires someone who's been tested, someone who's not afraid of making decisions, someone who can collaborate. When I was mayor the first time around, mayor of the Big Island, Billy Kinoy, the mayor of Maui, Charmaine Tavares, the mayor of Kauai, Bernard Carvalho, we did everything together. That's what's needed now, a sense of collaboration amongst the county mayors, working with the governor, working with the lieutenant governor to bring us through the worst economic slump that we have ever experienced, and to do it in such a way that we respect the fact that we want people to come here, we're healthy and safe, but at the same time, figure out a way how we can get this industry going. For those who say, oh, we don't need tourism anymore, too many tourists anyway, you're not gonna find and pivot to an economic diversification industry that'll happen right now. Every governor, every mayor has tried to do it beyond tourism. They've always come back to tourism. That doesn't mean you don't stop trying, but in the short term, the future is now. We don't open up tourism, if we don't get people back to work, if we don't make sure that the jobs are there, we're gonna see tremendous suffering, not just financially, but you're gonna see domestic strife in families where the father wants to work, trying to do his best, but he can't find work, and it's gonna spill over into the home front. I know that. We're already seeing instances of it right now.
Awesome. All right. So during this time in Hawaii, the economy is declining due to this coronavirus, and it's probably going to last us for a lifetime, right? On your website, you have a plan to revitalize tourism. Explain to us more about your plan.
I have a 5-point plan, the only one running for mayor that has a detailed plan. And I came in the latest. I came in on June 1. You would have thought that they would have put together a plan. Some of them have developed it since I came in. So here's what it is. Health and safety first. That's the first part of my plan. Got to make sure that people understand there's a new normal when they come to Hawaii, when they come to Honolulu. And that's important for them to understand that. We also have to make sure that our workers feel safe in going back to the workplace, whether it's hotels, whether it's small businesses, whether it's nonprofit groups, who feel confident going there. Then you need a mayor who makes sure that these standards of protocol are all pervasive and that everyone is going to adhere to it. And that's where you come in with the first responders and the law enforcement folks. If people are going to flaunt it, not keep in sync, and not keep in compliance, then there must be measures put in place to make sure that they understand that, pay a fine, whatever it takes, that we're all on the same page. I recently went to Chinatown and did a tour there. My goodness, it's really regressed. It's not clean anymore. It's not as safe as it used to be, and the homeless problem has gotten out of control. They told me when I was there, said, you know, Mayor, it wasn't this bad when you were there. It was much better. My job is to go in there and improve Chinatown and other neighborhoods who feel threatened by the fact that health and safety has really gone by the wayside. Number 2, bring businesses back. I talked about tourism. I talked about the fact that this is an industry that has to come back. Why? The numbers speak for themselves. $17 billion in revenues, $2 billion in taxes, employed over 200,000 people. Where is that industry that we can put people back to work almost immediately if we can do that? It starts with tourism. And I really believe that's the key to our small businesses to grow and prosper. We've seen the local economy opening now. No one's doing gangbusters. No one is basically saying, wow, I'm able to hire everybody back. It's not going to happen for a while. So bring tourism back safely. Also help our small businesses and look to expand that tourism model where we have more sports tourism, we have more film tourism, we have more cultural tourism, we have more arts tourism. Yes, it's all drawn from the same bucket. That is what we have now to bring people back immediately. Make Honolulu a world-class city. One of the best ways to do that is do rail properly. Yep, I'm the person who started rail, and the project has gone south. In the 10 years I've been out of City Hall, I was not a council member then that voted to increase every budget. I was not the chair of HEART, as some who are running in this race were, to basically tamp down on the expenses. It happened. We went from $5 billion to over $9 billion. I was mayor, it was on time, on budget, on schedule, as I said earlier, with a huge contingency fund. I was following the will of the people who voted for it. They said they wanted rail. So my job now, I'm determined to go back, fix it, and see it through. Fix it and see it through. I will rely on private dollars through public-private partnerships. I will rely on federal funds from Washington. My resume speaks of someone who's worked with Democratic administrations, Republican administrations. I will do all of that because there's some good things that are happening because of rail. They call it transit-oriented development, where around rail stations, you'll be able to build commercial, retail, housing. It's going to happen at Aloha Stadium. When we have the new Aloha Stadium, going to be financed by private dollars. Why? Because of the station being parked outside of Aloha Stadium. It's going to happen at the station right outside of Pearl Harbor. The military is going to invest and spend on that. Why? Because of the fact that they have a rail station there. And when I see it going down Dillingham, we have an opportunity to build 10,000 affordable rental units. That's the goal of the state. That's why if you like rail, you're going to love transit-oriented development. It's going to improve neighborhoods. It's going to make sure that we have a better way of life. And environmentally, how can you argue about the biggest electric vehicle is going to reduce carbon emissions that go in the air because it's going to be powered by electricity? It's an electric vehicle. So all of this suggests it's going to be a daunting task. It's going to be a very difficult task. But why don't you send the guy back who has been in that project from the beginning, was out of City Hall for 10 years, but wants to come back and fix it and see it through? Because everybody running for mayor, at least of the 5 major candidates, are all pro-rail. They've all taken a position to say they're pro-rail. I can be at your service to make sure that we get it done properly without raising real property taxes to finance the construction of rail. That's my pledge. And the city administration and the council have voted to make property taxes part of it. I don't want to see that happen under my watch. If I have to honor an obligation that they did, so be it. Going beyond, we will not use real property taxes to finance the construction of rail. If it means taking a pause momentarily, we will do that. Then the next stage is what I call minding the money. You know, taxpayers' dollars sometimes is seen as a personal piggy bank by elected officials, especially when they're about to leave office. It's all about legacy. In my administration, we will make sure that we spend it on need to have rather than nice to have. And I have a history of being a fiscal conservative. I don't believe in wasting dollars. They have to be able to pass my litmus test. You need it, can you afford it, can you maintain it? If we can do that, then let's go forward with it. I understand the complexities of a multi-billion-dollar operating budget that no one has even come close to figuring out. Not just a bunch of zeros. It's real in-depth knowledge and expertise to make sure that you have enough money to be able to fund the operations. You have enough money to be able to do essential city services. You have enough money to basically put away for a rainy day fund. You have enough money to satisfy obligations like the employee retirement fund. And then you have the wherewithal and the expertise to not raise property taxes. That's what I bring to the table. A fiscal, responsible mayor who is governed with being a fiscal conservative. Last but not least, it's all about making us green, clean, and sustainable. We love these islands. We want these islands to be perpetuated for generations to come. And I understand what it means to do that, whether it's making sure that we're on that path of dealing with sea level rise and global warming, that we continue our efforts to renewable energy, whether we do what we can to make sure that we're buying vehicles and operating hybrid electric vehicles. All those things are important. Most importantly, a mayor also has to understand that from time to time, he has to look at land out there and see whether we can set aside in conservation, or in the case of Waimea Valley, that I led the charge on to purchase that land, devoid of any kind of development which was going to happen had I not successfully put together a hui of partners to pay enough and say to the owner who wanted to go for it, now's not the time, please, let's remember you in a good way. Let's save Waimea Valley for generations to come. Now it's in the hands and stewardship of Office of Hawaiian Affairs in perpetuity.
Thank you for your response. So talking about the rail, you know, there's some that support it, there's some that don't support it. Why do you think people are split on this whole issue about the construction of the rail?
Well, I think basically because of the fact that the cost has gone out of control and the lack of management. I don't blame them. I'm upset too, because when I left it in good shape, fully expecting my successors to follow up on the same laser-like focus and champion the project. We don't have a champion in government anymore for rail. When I did it, Senator Inouye was our champion from Washington, D.C. He wanted this very badly to occur during his Senate career. The Obama administration was a champion for it. I was a champion at the county level. Former Congressman Mark Takai was a representative then. He was a champion at the House level. We've lost that focus. We need to bring it back. The other thing, too, is that we got to recognize the voters wanted to create HART. That's the agency that operates, I should say, that is in charge of constructing rail. They got a good man there who's a good leader and experienced leader. His name is Andy Robbins. He has not had the support of the Caldwell administration as much as he should have. Case in point, they should have been building now during this period down Middle Street. Should have, right? No traffic right now. People are out of school. Children are out of school. It would have been the perfect time, but there are permits that are being hung up at City Hall. Can't understand that. They should also have had a plan to start interim service from Waipahu, even if it's just to Aloha Stadium. Let people ride. Once they ride, hope and optimism that this project is going to go forward, well, it manifests itself. It's no different than H3. A lot of opposition to H3. Oh, it's a highway to nowhere. It's a tunnel to nowhere. Look, when it opened, wow, you don't find anybody opposed to H3. So I believe those type of initiatives should have been done. It's not going to be done. My job is to go in and pick up the ball and move it forward. So yes, there is some opposition to it now. Yes, there's some folks who are doubting whether this project ever succeed, but I want to make one last fact perfectly clear. If we try to stop the project now, we'll not be able to pay back what we would owe for stopping the project. The federal government would demand full refund of anything they've given us. There'll be lawsuits galore. If it's costing over $9.5 billion, the estimates it'll be at least $8.6 billion to try to stop the project, not counting the lawsuits that would be filed, some of them successful, against the city. The other thing, too, is some are saying stop it at Middle Street. Does that really make sense to stop it at Middle Street? We need to go all the way to Ala Moana to really make it make sense. And to stop it at Middle Street is also short-sighted because you don't take advantage of the transit-oriented development that will take place along that corridor. Look at Kaka'ako. When I was mayor, it was barren. Nothing was moving in Kaka'ako until I said rail will come down there. My goodness, look at it now. We have increased capacity there to have more development take place there in that area that is zoned for development. Most importantly, it's bringing in increased property tax revenues because the values have gone up. If Kaka'ako were the status quo, there's no way that would happen. Mistake perhaps of city leaders and state leaders that they never went back to these same developers who are profiting because of rail and asked them, what can you do to help reduce the cost? What can you do to contribute to this project? That will not happen under the Hannemann administration because we will ask them. We will ask them, if you're going to benefit from rail by building some of this housing, commercial, retail, hotels, whatever it is, we want to ask you to contribute to the cost of rail.
Thank you for your response. All right, so we're going to go into our second portion, which is it's a time portion. So I'm going to ask, for our listeners, I'm going to ask Mufi 5 questions, and he's going to have 2 minutes to answer each question. And then, so I'll ask the question first, and then I will let you go ahead. All right, sounds good?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, so first question is, excuse me. So what is one way we can diversify our economy outside of tourism?
Well, let's not stop doing what we're trying to do. I mean, the state continues to promote efforts in that regard, especially with innovative technology. Let's not stop. There are also some other science initiatives out there. Let's not stop. And I think this pandemic gave rise to a couple of other nascent industries that could start or could accelerate. For example, cybersecurity. That's going to be a part of almost everything that we do going forward. And also there's some opportunities in the medical profession, the health profession, as a result of the heightened awareness of what we need to do to keep safe and healthy. So I believe those efforts should continue. There's some ideas in agriculture, aquaculture. There's some ideas coming forward with respect to continue to have Hawaii be a major area of investment and development and going forward, promoting good development and proper development to create jobs. Let's not stop. Let's keep doing it. But I do know at the end of the day, in the short term, it will always come back to tourism. And that's what people need to understand. If that were the case, Governor Burns would have found that silver bullet. Governor Ariyoshi, Governor Waihee, Governor Cayetano, Governor Lingo, Governor Abercrombie. All these governors have tried to diversify the economy. It always comes back to it. I think we should look to see what kind of synergism we can create with our military industry here. They're number two outside of tourism, and there might be some joint initiatives that we could do together in the areas of science, technology, and military capability and readiness. That could be an area too that we could look to respond and respond appropriately by trying to create jobs. Let's look to see what we can do out of the University of Hawaii. They have wonderful academic colleges there, institutions. They could also lend some good ideas in helping us diversify this economy.
Time. Oh, yeah, just in time. Sorry, give me a second. Okay. All right, next question. What will you do in the first 90 days if elected as mayor?
Well, the first thing you have to do is assemble a cabinet. You can't do it alone. I was very blessed to have a cabinet of Democrats, Republicans, independents. I never asked them whether you voted for me or not. I didn't care. I wanted the best and the brightest. And that's why we achieved an 80% approval rating. No other cabinet, I believe, in the history of Hawaii and Honolulu and Hawaii has ever had that kind of approval rating. So that's number one, because you can't do it alone. Number two, I got to dig deep into the weeds of the financial plan that I will inherit from the Caldwell administration and see whether that continues to make sense. I'm a big believer in cutting out wasteful spending. I'm a big believer to see whether we can cut. I can tell you right now, I'll be cutting things in the mayor's office. I think he's got positions there. Really, I don't see a need for it. For example, he's got an assistant there that oversees the rail project. Why are you doing that? Why should you be working with heart to do that? I will be looking to consolidate some responsibilities at agencies level to see whether a department can do that and save some money in that process. And then looking to cut some of the spending. There's no need, for example, to spend monies on trying to move forward with renovations at the Blaisdell. That's got to be put on hold because you can't even figure out this administration how to pay for rail. So let's shelve that momentarily. The other thing I'm going to do is basically work with the counties, bring all the mayors together, meet with the governor and see how we can reduce duplication. Let's see where we can have some cost saving. Let's see where we can basically say if the county does it better, let the counties do it. If the state does it better, let the state do it. It's very important because these are times of scarce resources. There's not going to be a lot of money that's going to be floating around. So you got to be fiscally responsible. You got to be wise and creative how we save taxpayers' dollars for essential services.
Right in time. All right, next question. How would you handle the homelessness problem occurring here on Oahu?
Well, I come into this job with the experience of having been a mayor before and also being very active on the homeless front in the private sector. So I'm going to come forward with some new ideas that I've gleaned over the past 10 years to help the city and the state solve homelessness. It's not going to go away overnight, but more than ever, we've got to have a collaborative partnership to be able to address this. When I've been out of office for the past 10 years, through the Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association, we do what's called a charity walk every year. We raised $2.7 million last year and gave out to 350 plus nonprofit organizations throughout the state. And what I did in particular is that I had a laser-like focus on those organizations that deal with homelessness. And I went to the state and I said, if I give $1 million to these nonprofit groups, will you match us dollar for dollar? And that's exactly what the state did. I want to take that spirit of partnership to the city as a mayor, looking to see how we can do public-private partnerships there, and also at the state. The other thing that we believed very strongly in was repatriation, and that is locating a loved one on the mainland that's willing to take back someone here in Hawaii, make sure that they're ready to go, make sure that the loved one will receive them, make sure they have a home, and then put skin in the game by paying half of the airfare, and we would pay the other half. We did that during this times of crisis where people were coming here with no address. We were able to locate where they were from, and we sent them back. That's another aspect of dealing with homelessness that I want to deal with. The best thing, though, is there's a spirit of cooperation between the city and the state that now was not always there. You've got a homeless coordinator at the state level, you got a homeless coordinator at the county level, and then you have a number of legislators who are very focused on it. My job as mayor is to bring them all together and make sure we make progress on this.
Cool. All right, next question. What would you have done differently in response to the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, you know, you got to give props to the mayor, all the mayors, and the governor and the lieutenant governor for dealing with a very difficult situation. I thought they did a great job when it came to dealing with the initial wave of the pandemic. They put us in a quarantine mode. They basically shut us down, and they blew the conch shell for everybody in Hawaii to cooperate. And I think that's why we were able to see the results that we did. Now we are flipping to a different mode. The mode is, excuse me, it's economic recovery. This requires strong, courageous leadership. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to have anything, even if you are tested, that will prove that it's 100% foolproof. It's not going to happen. So we need steady, calm leadership that can basically calm the public, that if we go forward and we see these spikes, now is not the time to panic, because we put through a program that not only will force people to test before they come here, because that's the only way you can escape quarantine, but also a very strong contact tracing program that if in fact they get the virus while they're here, we have a program ready to launch into place to make sure that they're quarantined and they're self-isolated. We're also going to require strong leadership to be able to communicate that plan. If there's one thing I thought they could have done a better job of, it's communicating consistent policies. You know, sometimes you had one county say this, the other county said something else. The state came back and said, oh, you're both not correct. We're going to do this. It was so confusing. I think now that they've set a date for September 1, all hands on board. Let's make those communications plan clear, not just for businesses, but for the individuals that know we are living a new normal. This is how it's going to be going forward.
All right. And last question. What is more important, acting in response to the will of the people or acting in the way city officials believe is the best course of action?
Well, obviously, I always opt for what the community wants. That's why we did rail, because that's what the people voted for. 53% of them said they want rail. Had they voted thumbs down, or had they voted for a mayor who ran on an anti-rail platform, the message would be clear. It just seems to me that people want this project, as beleaguered, as mismanaged as it's been along the way. They still want it. So the job of a good leader is to come in now and say that was the mandate of the people. You got to fix it. Don't engage in the blame game. Make sure that you do it in the right way, and this way it has to be done in a fiscally responsible manner. So that's very important, community engagement. I saw a number of instances this administration went forward and the community wasn't really for it, or there was mixed results. They did that out in Waimanalo at Sherwood Forest. Kupuna spoke out very strongly about that. They should not have proceeded. At Ala Moana Park, as great as an idea that was, cut off a sliver of that park to improve, have an improved playground for our children, our keiki on the surface. That was a great idea, but you're also talking about the crown jewel of all our parks. And that's why all the aficionados of Ala Moana Park came out and said, wait a second, you are taking something away for us that we are really not on board. So at the end of the day, it comes down to what the community wants. If the community wants me back as mayor, I'm prepared to go back because they are going to speak through the selection process. Now, that is what you have to keep in mind as you go forward here. And if you think the community is not going the right way, whatever, then you as a leader have to go out into the community and explain why you may have a difference of opinion. Don't expect people to get it or say, oh, because he or she's elected, they should trust me. You always.
All right, time. So before we go, I like to ask this question because it's a good question to ask. But what does Talking Story mean to you?
Talking story means to me is having a two-way conversation. What I would have liked about this or any other talk stories, and in fact, you played the role of someone who was asking questions on behalf of the community. But I always like to engage on one-on-ones to let people ask their questions. And you know, I'm the kind of leader. I don't mind if the questions are uncomfortable. I don't mind if they're hostile. That's what you have to do when you're a leader. You can't just put yourself in a comfort zone and say, I only want to talk to people. I only want to be there if they're all pro me. That's not the fact of life. A true leader makes decisions. Every decision that you make, every strong decision will always have its detractors. So what you have to do is to explain your position why you feel you took the right path. And if people disagree with you, that's okay. That's why I believe in debates. I believe in forums. It's a chance to bring people together, to compare their ideas. And if someone has a better idea than you do, hey, you know what? Embrace it. Embrace it. Because at the end of the day, if it's good for the people, that's what you should do instead of saying, oh, I'm not going to get credit for that because that's not my idea. Doesn't matter. Mufi Hannemann's world is all about good ideas that make this place the best place in the world to live, work, and raise our families. That's my pledge. That's what I'm going to do as mayor if you give me the opportunity to go back to my old job. We need that strong, tested, collaborative leadership more than ever. We're in a rut. We're in an economic slump. Put it in the hands of someone who will do the job. And I'll leave you with this. If you were facing an operation, okay, a life-threatening operation, who would you want to go to perform that surgery, that operation? Would you go to someone who's never done surgery before? Or would you go to an experienced doctor with a record performing operations and surgeries? That's what we're facing here now. Need experienced leadership to be able to move Honolulu forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Mufi, for coming on the show and sharing your heart with the rest of us. And good luck to you, sir, on this mayor candidate, this mayor election.
Thank you, Gavin. Thank you for your willingness to engage me and give me an opportunity again to share my thoughts, my mana'o, and best of luck to you too.
Awesome. And thank you guys for joining us. We hope you have a great day. Have a blessed day. Stay safe out there.